Hello there everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Joesephyr and welcome to another Should You Pull video for Dissidia Final Fantasy Omnia. Now since yesterday we have another banner that we've all been looking forward to for quite some time coming up this Friday in Porom. Now Porom is a very hotly anticipated character for many reasons, which we'll go over in just a moment. But not only that, but we're going to tackle Dimensions and Transcendance 3 as well. Now, if you want to learn more about the triple BT banner that's just come out, then feel free to take a look at my last video I posted yesterday. And you'll also notice I've made some slight changes to my visuals, nothing crazy. I just wanted to go with a cleaner, brighter look so that I could present more just clean footage and nice, just make the content look a bit nicer for you guys. So let me know in the comments below what you think of that as well. But if you want to learn more about Porom and Dimensions and Transcendence 3, then of course stay tuned and keep on watching. Now, of course, before we get started, don't forget to check out all of my social media links down below, including Twitch, where I'll be streaming 5 times a week, including every event for Dissidia Omnia as it's released. So you come join me Friday morning for Dimensions and Transcendence 3 and whatever pulls for Porom I'm planning on doing, as well as lots of Final Fantasy XIV and Final Fantasy Counter, where we're just coming up to the end of Final Fantasy XIV. With regards to Final Fantasy XIV as well, I do have a charity stream coming up at the end of this month, which is a 12-hour marathon stream, so I would love it if you guys checked out the description box down below for all of the details pertaining to that, and Mind Out, which is the charity that I've chosen to support. Also, well, if you're interested in my Patreon channel, I do also shout out one of my patrons every time I release a brand new video, and today that person is going to be Almiron, who has a title card that I've made just for them, as I would do for all of my patrons, and this one includes Sellers, who, like many of us, is a favourite for all. And if you like that, as well as other things such as being a part of Would You Pull, being a part of voice chats we all do, all sorts of different things, then perhaps you'd like to consider joining up on Patreon by clicking the link down below. And then, of course, don't forget to check out all of the other content creators out there for Dissidia Omnia and all of the resources pertaining to the game as well. So now, of course, let's discuss Porom and her LD and why she's so hotly anticipated. Now, before we get started on talking about the banner or anything to do with Porom, I'm going to show you guys a Reddit thread that I found called Dispelling FOMO Panic All About Porom LD, and a massive shout out goes out to Drusain, who wrote this particular post, because it goes into a very, very heavy amount of detail as to why people are so hotly anticipating Porom, as well as reasons that perhaps you might not want her as well, and I just thought it was a fantastic read. So I'm going to leave a link down in the description box below for you guys to read through that, because I think it's extremely interesting and a very good read in general. But going back to what Porom's abilities actually do, we're going to talk about obviously the banner, which is going to contain all of Porom's kit, so her 1535 EX and LD. It's going to be probably the last chance that we get for Lael LD, but given that we've been told not to miss the next the next community stream, which will be on Monday, that normally means that we've got something to look forward to. So if you haven't picked up Lael's BT from this banner, I would suggest maybe waiting at least until Monday till we know what's coming out in the future. That's not for me to say, yes, there's a global exclusive or anything coming. It's just better to be prudent than not to be. And then we also have Lulu and King EXs, which, as I've said before, EX is very much a secondary thought at this point in time. Now, if you've not used Porom before, I actually took a long time to get Porom's EX, because she has a very, very interesting kit. Porom is basically just a very strong healer character with some very powerful auras and a very, very powerful and unique buff in her HP damage resistance. And the reason I say it's unique is because despite the fact that other characters do have HP damage resistance, no one quite does it to the level that she does, which is up to 70% using her skill 2 for a single target and her EX for a party-wide one. And that's very powerful. And she also has some very interesting things, like she has a 60% defense drop on her Cry, her skill 1. And, you know, she does lots of just nice things just by sitting there. And that, while that hasn't changed massively with her LD, what it does is it means that her LD makes it so that she's a lot more capable of carrying the entire support plethora just by herself. So to go into her skills and what they do before her LD, Cry and Cry Plus ask for or the plus versions of her skills ask for her to have a stronger version of her Light Arts and Light Wisdom buffs, which, thanks to her EX, she starts with 2 stacks of these, and that means that it only takes 1 use of each of these skills to then get to the plus versions. So the plus version, or the regular version of Cry, is a party battery with that gives her the Light Arts 3 that she needs for Cry Plus, inflicts a small defense down, and that's pretty much it. However, when you get to Cry Plus, that defense down becomes 60%, which is quite strong at this point in time. Or even back when she had it, it was very strong, and it's still good now, especially on a support-based character. And it also has a chance, a 25% chance of inflicting the Confuse debuff. Now, I would never rely on this. Like, I would see it as a nice, oh, that's pleasant, great, love that, useful. But I would never ever rely on this. You would only really use this because you need to reset her buff, or you desperately need a party battery. But her entire kit battery is at this point, so I wouldn't stress too much about that. Mysidian Brilliance really, both of her skills basically require the plus versions of themselves, but Mysidian Brilliance is a healing skill that heals up to 30% of max HP, or the regular version, does a bravery does a bravery battery to the character in question, and it also gives them, it just gives them health, and it gives her the Light Wisdom buff. The plus version of it, however, grants the HP damage resist to a single character. So 70% HP damage reduction is a lot. Like, that's a lot of HP damage reduction. And not only that, but you get a max brave up buff from it, which is quite pleasant, and the healing becomes stronger, so it goes up to 50% of their max HP. Really, really strong. But you'll notice neither of her base skills do damage. They don't brave shave, they don't do HP damage, they just do the support part of the kit. Her C65 is a party-wide heal and party-wide attack, so it's useful, but her whole kit kind of does it. White Wave is also a very, very interesting skill, because certainly when she's got the EX plus version of itself, so the 3 out of 3 EX plus, she then does a healing to the party. So and this can go up to an overflow of 120% as well. So like I said, Porom is the first character that had access to HP overflow, and it's still very relevant here. And it then does it makes it so that you get a HP attack that it then increases the party bravery, or by batterying again, and you get the HP damage resist to the entire party for 2 turns. Now, the HP damage resist only ever lasts for 2 turns, but the fact that you get that for a whole party means that you can be prepared for practically anything. It's very, very useful to have in general. It also, because after she's gained the bravery, after you've put some stones into it, it does splash damage to the targets. It's really good, and it doesn't have a slow recast rate either. But the main reason for that is because more likely than not, you're probably going to end up using her HP++ more often than you're going to be using her skills, because you're only realistically going to use Mysidian Brilliance when either you need to refresh her buffs, or you need to apply that 70% HP damage to somebody that's being targeted. And Cry, again, you're only going to use that to refresh, or in emergency cases where you really need extra battery. But her LD kind of counters that as well. And her HP plus is fine. It's a brave gain followed by an HP attack that batteries your party. It's quite standard for the time in which she had it. Now, let's talk about Twin Cast Double Flare. Twin Cast Double Flare does a lot for Porom. It makes it so that she's got a lot more support capabilities, and she's able to start dealing damage where she couldn't before. So this, again, is a party-wide heal that gives max HP overflow as well. It then does a 4-hit Brave HP attack, a 6-hit Brave HP attack, sorry, after LD boards. That makes it so that you've got a decent amount of damage off. That's split damage, but it's a multi-HP dump, so that's kind of normal. And then you get this buff, Twin Conviction. You get this for 12 turns, and I want to go through all the things that this buff does, because it's a lot. So, given that she's a massive battery character, before now she didn't really have a lot of Brave Overflow. She only had it for Brave Gains, not Stolen Bravery, so one's actually done by dealing damage. But she did have big attack auras and max brave auras, the defense and the HP damage reduction. Her healing can become stronger with use of her EX as well, so you get 20% extra healing on that. It's all good stuff, but what you get from this, you get 50% max brave overflow from stolen bravery, so she's actually supporting attacking characters much better than she was before. Party gained max brave overflow up by 30%, so she's now doing that for 50% as well. The party gets HP regen, which is actually very good because a lot of this stuff revolves, or the biggest thing about her buff revolves around the party having over 100% HP, much in the same vein as how Paladin Cecil's did. Party max HP up by 20%. Party last stand. Now, I don't know about you, but when you're healing that much, you've got HP, max HP up, lots of max HP overflow, and then you've got last stand on it. Do you know how much damage you would need to take to push through 70% HP damage resist for you to get knocked into last stand? It's a lot. However, the fact that this is here means that Porom is still useful in events where either enemies like to do their brave HPs early in a fight before you've had chances to set everything up, or there are events where HP damage reduction doesn't work on certain enemies. But Porom doesn't care because she still has last stand. So you've got that option if you still want to take her. Now, the other thing that comes along from this is brave gains go up by 20% after 100%, as long as your party has 100% HP or more. This is huge. On the back of the fact that not only is she the first character that actually does this, like augments bravery gains, as opposed to max overflow or stolen bravery for the party, but when you're looking at characters like Sephiroth, like anyone with a multi-HP dump that gains bravery after the first time they hit, or after, like Tifa. Tifa gains bravery every time she hits in the middle of her brave HP attacks, or during her LD, or her beat rush, etc. And that's going to make your damage massive. Not only that, but any kind of bravery refunds get augmented. And the 20% from this is additive as well, which means that it's always going to be 20% of at the end of whatever you would have gained. So it's not sort of lost in the kind of amalgamation in equations. It's a good amount of bravery that you're gaining. And honestly, anything that counteracts sort of the brave gain reductions that we've seen from various enemies up until this point for Lufenia and going forward into Lufenia Plus is going to be a big deal. Not only that, Porom gets an additional action after anything she does. So this includes her C65 as well. Reduces all target's bravery by current HP. The group then you get a split AoE follow-up attack where the HP damage is dealt equal to the party's current HP. Doesn't consume her bravery and batteries the party. This then comes along on top of the brave gain increase, the brave overflow increase. It's just huge. Like, there's so much safety behind Porom. Now, not only are you keeping your HP safe because of the HP damage resist, it's very rare you're ever really going to get broken again unless you leave yourself in a really bad position if you have Porom out, because everything she does now does some damage. You would argue actually, like, and I, you know, referring back to the Reddit post that I was reading as well, that I'll leave in the link down below, you can argue between whether you'd want HP artifacts for Porom or max bravery ones, because the higher your HP is, the more damage her follow-up is going to do, and therefore the more battery you're going to get, because it's based on how much damage you're dealing with it. So, like I said, absolutely 100% very much recommend reading that post. There's a lot of details in there that I would recommend going through that I've not touched on here as well. But now this not only does it make her more of a defensive but like powerhouse, she's now also able to deal damage where she couldn't before. So if you do need to refresh your skills or anything like that, you're still going to get an HP attack at the end of it. If you're using her HP plus, which you will still be using a lot, she's going to get a double HP dump out of it, because you're batterying, then getting the follow-up, and then batterying again, and it just all adds up to a good thing, to just good stuff. And because her Brave Overflow is so large, and the Brave gains are all there, there's a lot of characters that you can pair her up with that really take advantage of that brave gains up. But if you are not taking characters that benefit from that, then Porom isn't always the number one choice. Like, she's incredibly good. There's no two ways about it. She's got the big auras. She's got the HP safety. She's now got the ability to keep people alive and, you know, make sure that she's always got these brave gains up because of her HP regens and the healing in her kit. Yes, there's a lot. You know, the only real downside to Porom is that she's really very, very dull to play. She doesn't act very much. Like, she's there and she does everything that she does just by being there. She, like, you know, the buffs are there. Like, the Twin Conviction lasts for 12 turns. Now, you only get 3 uses of her LD, but quite frankly, 36 turns worth of Twin's Conviction should get you through pretty much anything. But once you've set her all up, the only things really left for you to do are to HP attack with her and refresh the buffs as and when you need them. There's not an awful lot of interaction with Porom, and because it's also, it's very, very loaded, but because it's also simple, there's a lot to love there. But there might be some players that maybe don't enjoy her, despite the fact that she brings so much to the table. Now, going into Porom's call abilities and her armor recommendations, weirdly, neither of Porom's call abilities actually heal your party, but they're still very good. Cry on its own it's fine. It's a party battery that inflicts the defense down that you would have gotten from Cry Plus, and you also get a party attack up for 6 turns after you've used it. So it's that nice kind of like attack goes up, defense goes down. That means you're going to deal more damage. The Twin Cast Double Flare, so the LD call, does everything that her LD would do, apart from obviously the follow-up attacks on her kit and sticking around to present the auras and everything. So you get the large max brave overflows for both gains and stolen bravery, and you do get the brave gains plus 20% up as long as the party member's HP is over 100%, which is useful. Like, I think honestly, if you're going to use Porom, you'll probably be more likely to use her in your main party than as a call, but it's still a really good call ability regardless, and those brave gains, when used in the correct combinations of characters, are where Porom shines. It's the biggest thing that makes her unique in this period within the game, is that she gives those brave gains plus 20%. So if you're using damage dealers along the lines of characters like Sephiroth or Golbez, they both benefit from this a lot, and they benefit from a lot of other stuff that she brings to the table as well. Future characters will also benefit from this, and the fact that she provides that on top of the massive amounts of safety that she provides means that while there are players that may find her boring, she is gonna get the job done, and she will do so just by standing there and not having to do a lot, and that in and of itself is impressive. Then with her armor, she has Encouragement Keystone, which is nice, and she does have a Sea Sphere as well, but her brave gains are really massive already. And her blue armor, is nice. It gives 15% HP held to the party, but honestly, I don't feel like, certainly with all the clears that I've watched, I haven't seen many people give blue armor to Porom, so I'm not sure I would either. I do, as I've said before, given how stingy we are when it comes to gaining resources for giving HA plus armor, I would prefer to reserve this for a damage dealer who gets bigger numbers by themselves, because Porom having an extra 15% HP isn't really going to do an awful lot for her kit. Yes, she can like give it to other characters, but HP damage isn't her thing. However, with her LD follow-up attack, I will also say that because her bravery damage isn't damage, it's gravity-based, similar to like X-Death or characters like that. And it can't break enemies either. It can only ever leave them at 0. Characters like Lightning or Aranea or Null, or characters who like to break enemies as part of their kit, really love having Porom around. Honestly, I sit there and I try and say, you know, there might be reasons not to go for Porom, but she is exceptionally good. Like, I can't not recommend her. She's incredibly powerful. She's still usable for a long period. I'm talking 7-8 months plus of her usability, and she's just very, very good at what she does. And yeah, like, there might be players that maybe don't like her for whatever reason. Like, I mean, I can't stand the noise she makes when she uses the cry ability, but I'm still gonna pull for her because I just think she is that good. And yeah, some people may consider her overhyped. Do you have to have Porom to continue playing? Absolutely not. If you've got Warrior of Light, you have a character that's going to be able to, like, ward off HP damage very well. If you have Aerith, Aerith does a lot of, like, safety measures when it comes to bravery, as well as having the buff and debuff, like, negation and things like that. The combination of aspects is what makes Porom unique, on top of the Brave gain increase. The Brave gain increase is the biggest thing about her, and if you want to use characters that benefit from that, then those characters are going to benefit greatly from Porom, and there's just no real other way to put it. So now let's take a look at Dimension's End, Transcendance Gate 3, and the various events that come with that. Now, similarly to others, you're going to be required to take certain coloured crystal characters for each of the left and right crystals, and you make 2 parties out of those from characters you've not used in Dimension's End Transcendence previously. And then once you finish those 2, the center one opens up and you have to use a party comprised of the 6 characters you've used in the left and right gates. So we'll talk about the left gate first. This is Gao's bosses, the Ancestor Lizard fight, where you have 3 enemies and the Lufenia Orb requirement is to launch the enemy, which gives them +5 turns. So for obvious reasons, given the fact that it asks to launch and the required crystal for this is yellow, it's asking you to use Lael, basically. Now, Lael obviously is perfect for it because his launches are, like, irrelevant to the fact that there's 3 enemies, because when there's multiple enemies, launch characters tend to kind of struggle sometimes when it comes to, like, launching and getting the full party in. Lael obviously doesn't care about that because he gets full launches regardless of the turn order, but he's not the only character that can do it. If you haven't used Ramza already, I've seen a lot of clears using Ramza because his LD call, particularly if you have his burst as well, will allow you to get those launches across the board at frequency, because any AoE damage launch attack will also set up the other enemies for being launched, so you can take advantage of that. Tifa, also yellow crystal, also has launch in her kit. She is, however, only single target launch, so you have to be careful of, like, making sure that you're able to bring, like, cool abilities, characters like Cloud, Ramza even, characters that can make those launches happen even when Tifa's not able to do it, because otherwise the Lufenia Orb will tick down. And then after that, you can take advantage of the fact that there's loads of enemies there by bringing a tank along that's going to do the job well. And Warrior of Light, I will say this now, stomps all over this tier of Dimension's End, destroys it. However, I think he's better suited to the right gate than the left one, but you absolutely definitely want to have him for the center one. He is, if you don't have him or Porom, and I've seen some people using Galoof as well, they're the key characters that you're gonna want for this tier. But given that, you know, these characters, particularly Wall and Porom, last for quite such a long time, you're probably going to want to have one of them at least anyway. So realistically, most people should at least try to get at least one of them, because they're, you know, the safety is just there and it's mandatory essentially for this particular tier. But other than that, you can use Gladio in this particular fight. There's 3 enemies and they act a lot and they delay you in their kit. Bring Gladio if you haven't used him already, or Galoof if you haven't used him. You know, you could. There's lots of tank-based characters. 9 works really well here as well. And then your third character is going to want to be a damage dealer, like a strong one. Strago is probably who I'm likely to take here, because full blast AoE damage on every turn with, you know, that much frequency and 100% AoE damage every time, and breakage so that I can then delay them further to set up launches for other characters. Yeah, I mean, Squall, same reason. Squall, massive amounts of AoE damage, definitely going to do you well here. If you haven't used Kais already, although I used Kais in DE1, but if you haven't, bring him along here. He's a launch-based character that manipulates turn order. Gonna be really good for you here. If you know, if your tank has healing capabilities, so like Gladio has HP regen, anything like that, that's going to help you quite a lot as well, because these guys do like to throw HP attacks out quite frequently. But your main focus is making sure you can deal a large amount of damage quickly and make sure you can get launches off frequently. Now the right gate, the reason that I've said that you're going to want to save Warrior of Light if you have him for this particular fight is because it asks for a white crystal, so pretty much either him or Porom, and it also, the Lophenia Orb asks you to reduce HP damage that you've taken. Reducing HP damage to 0 does work here, so therefore the Bitter End buff that you get from Warrior of Light's LD will function fantastically here. And because they throw out so many HP attacks and they just throw out loads of them, a lot of them are Brave Gain HP attacks as well. Unless they're gaining past your shields with Warrior of Light, they're not dealing damage to you. The King Behemoths, they're just not going to deal damage to you. So past that, you can then take your choice of, damage dealer and then, whoever you want to be your support character alongside Warrior of Light. My personal choice is probably going to be to take Warrior of Light, Sephiroth, because I want a reason to use Sephiroth, and probably Ashe, because I think that she'll provide HP regen. She's a character I'm very interested in taking forward into the center stage because of her HP regen capabilities. And then having Sephiroth for fun would be really, really good. If I don't use Sephiroth, I'll probably use Tifa if I don't use her in the left gate, because I might end up using Lael for that. But honestly, once you've done all that, the biggest thing you'll have to worry about is the fact that they put a lot of buffs on themselves. But honestly, call abilities can deal with a lot of that stuff. If you have Faris Call, you are going to laugh watching rows of blue buffs suddenly turn red, and then you just go off. That's how you basically want to be able to deal with that. If you don't do that, they have an HP regen, which is definitely something you'll want to get rid of. But something I'm having read Tombury Troops page, which I've obviously put on the screen as well. If you can apply 4 frame debuffs to the enemy, then the HP regen never comes off. It never goes on, or you can push it off. So as long as you've got ways of, dealing with that, that's also very nice. I've seen a lot of people use Emperor here actually because of the amount of debuffs he puts on, and then for obvious reasons Porom works very, very well here. Emperor also serves as the white crystal character for this particular event, so if you wanted to bring a different damage reducing character such as Galuf or Celeste, even Guy, they work really well, and he's white crystal as well. There's lots of options that you have for HP damage reduction, but obviously the enemies need to be able to take a turn to be able to do that to you, so don't delay them to oblivion. So then finally we have the center stage, which will feature 2 waves versus Spineclads and Snake Pods. And they often, the Snake Pods are a variant on Medusa heads, and you see Medusa heads and you're like, no, don't want to deal with this. These ones, in my opinion, aren't as bad. Truth be told, I think this is probably going to be the easiest Dimensions and Transcendance tier we've had thus far, on the basis of the fact that we've had such power crept characters alongside this, and it's actually, even if it's not easy, it's very simple what you have to do. So with this tier, or with this part of the tier, you're going to want to bring somebody that has HP regen and somebody that can launch. Those are your 2 hard requirements, because in wave 1, when you hit a certain beyond their halfway point of HP, they will put up a brave damage reduction which reduces all bravery damage they take to 1 until they are launched, so that you can start dealing regular amounts of damage again. So Lael or Tifa, you can use call abilities to do it. I wouldn't want to rely on call abilities to do it. I would probably end up bringing Tifa or Lael for this. And then they also do this thing where they'll gain loads of bravery, and they then do a brave HP attack that gets around bravery shield, so Warrior of Light, but they don't get around his HP damage reduction effect, which honestly is a good thing that they don't damage your shields, because then your shields are higher for you to take no damage from that attack. Honestly, Warrior of Light laughs at this. Porom is not much different. Porom will just go, okay, EX ready for that attack. I'm now taking 70% damage reduction across the board. If you deal any damage to me, I'll just heal it back off. And even if you did manage to get a massive attack on me, then I've got Last Stand and I can heal past it. It's not the end of the world. So as long as you've got some way of getting around that, then it's really not too bad. And then the second wave, the Snake Pods will do fairly regular attacks, but what they will do is they'll delay themselves and lock their turns after you push them over certain damage thresholds, so that they can do a bigger AoE Brave HP attack after, it's like a straight neat gain bravery attack, and then an AoE HP attack. But again, it's brave gains, and it's not touching your bravery, which means as long as you've got your shields up with Warrior of Light, they're still not going to deal damage to you. So as long as, this is what I mean by Warrior of Light literally just laughs at this fight. I've watched many videos of this using various different characters, using Porom, using Galoof, using Warrior of Light, and Warrior of Light is the one where I've sat there and looked at it and gone, wow, this really just made this easy, didn't it? So if you have him, I would suggest using him if you want an easy time with this. But they also put up Brave damage reduction at the same time as they do these locked turns where they do these Brave gains. But the damage reduction isn't so big that you couldn't get around it by just increasing your damage higher. And this is part of the reason I want to bring Ashe along with me for this particular fight. My team will probably be Warrior of Light, Ashe and Tifa, because I think that having launched with cool abilities alongside Tifa is enough, just because you only actually have to launch each of the first bosses once, and then on the second fight, having that Imperil and the massive bravery, the massive HP damage and bravery damage increases from Ashe on top of Tifa's raw damage capabilities, and Warrior of Light now giving HP damage across the board, it's just gonna all add up and do wonders for this particular fight. Like I said, this one, none of the DE Transcendence fights are easy, but this one's definitely more simple than the others. So then we come to the main question of the video, which is whether I believe that Porom should be pulled for, and the answer to me is a resounding yes. Now, I know that a lot of people think that us content creators are overhyping Porom, but facts are facts. There are so many things that you can do and just shrug off with Porom in your roster that you couldn't do without her. She's got so much value on her in her kit, given just the sheer number of things that she provides to you all at once. Honestly speaking, short of an unavailable, you know, it's going to kill you, Lufenia orb going off, if Porom's in your party, it becomes extremely hard to kill you. Like I said earlier, you know, the amount of damage you'd have to get through her HP reduction and her HP max and her HP overflow, and then even if they do manage to get through all of that somehow, you still have the last stand to deal with, and she can heal everyone back up again, whether it's passively through her HP regen or through her actual skills, which she's going to want to use because she wants you to be over 100% HP for her Brave gain buff. Now she deals damage at a steady rate. It's not anything crazy, but she deals damage now. You know, she batteries your party like nobody's business. She just does so many things, and then she even has a unique thing in that she provides Brave gain pluses, which makes for certain characters being even more powerful than they already are. Honestly, if value alone is the one thing that you care about and the thing that you come to my or any other content creators' videos for, in my opinion, you're not going to want to miss out on Porom. Honestly, the only thing that I don't think that some character players will like about her is that she's very, very passive. She's not a very interactive character. Everything that you get from Porom, you get from her just standing there. Like, she uses, as long as she's like got her LD buff and like she's refreshing all of her buffs with her skills, it's the only real reason you have to use her skills. The only interaction that you're really going to have is using her EX to counter an oncoming attack you know is coming, and using an HP plus because then you get a double HP dump off of her follow-up as well as her regular one. Like, yeah, she, and not, actually I didn't, but one thing I didn't touch on earlier is the fact that all of her stuff is reliant on framed buffs. She has 5 framed buffs on her kit, which means that she doesn't play very well with other buffers. I was initially really excited about the idea of using maybe like Serra and Porom, because Serra has like the Brave and HP damage increases. You know, Porom can give Serra all of the Brave gain buffs that she gets because of her battery capabilities. And then I remembered that Porom has 5 frame debuffs, and that the pair of their damage probably is quite low. So you just have to be careful who you pair her up with. Like, she's not going to go in every party, but the fact of the matter is, you're probably more likely to build a party around Porom than you are around a lot of characters because of just how much she does. So, like I said, if you just don't like her, or you don't think that she's going to be very good for you, fair enough. But I think she's going to be good for a lot more people than she's not. And then, of course, it's time for Would You Pull, the section of the video where you, the viewer, get your chance to make your voice heard and let everyone know whether you would or wouldn't pull on any given banner and why. So, as always, a massive thank you goes out to all of my patrons for their votes and their comments. And if you wanted a full look at all of the comments that I get for Would You Pull, then it's something that is a benefit to becoming a patron, because I can only post so many comments during a video at once. Now, going into the numbers straight away, I will just say this straight up. 50% of people said yes to gems, straight up, just 50%. Then 39% of people said yes to 100 or more tickets. 6% said 100 or less tickets, and 6% said no. So while there are people that think that she's overhyped, there is a great deal more that think that she's well worth the hassle. Now, more people said yes to gems for Tifa, which I find interesting, especially given this first comment I've got from Proto Mega, who says, gems, even though I already have LGBT. Honestly, I'd forgotten that LGBT was even on the banner. I've just focused entirely on Porom, but if the game wants to give me LGBT, I would be very, very happy about it. Porom is the best support in the game and can last several months into the BT Plus era. She's much more of a must-pull than Tifa. Now, I am curious as to what you guys think of that, because I think I'm inclined to agree. Because a support character that lasts for that amount of time, as opposed to a damage dealer who, yes, is still the premier damage dealer in the game and is for a while, there's just something about support characters that to me feels more valuable than a damage dealer, but I don't know. That's why I thought I'd ask you guys and see what you thought of that. And then Goose says, going with tickets for Porom. I've not done my due diligence on what she does beyond Brave gain up and damage based on HP, but based on reports from JP players, she's a major enabler for early Lufenia Plus fights. I'm not expecting her to win any fights single-handed, but she ought to help make those painful auras a lot more manageable. Lufenia Plus, at the beginning, is the era where a lot of JP players really got upset with how railroaded the game appeared to be. And anything that is going to help make that process smoother. I like to think that because we have the foresight of the JP version that we won't have it so bad in the global version, but anything that's going to make that easier surely is worth at least a look, right? And then Doc Shootem says, Porom gets 300 tickets, maybe 400 if the mood strikes me. She's always been a character that you keep in your back pocket and remove the stress of high-end content. The amount of chaos content she got me through, even just at 0 out of 3 and earlier, cannot be overstated. That said, now she's designed to encourage and enable a playstyle that I plain don't particularly find satisfying. If you're not using her for Brave game teams, you're not getting as much oomph out of her as you should. You don't need her to clear content, but she's good to have around for when the going gets tough. But for me, I planned without, and so I'm fine going without or getting a surprise. I mean, that's a lot of tickets for, she is very good. I do agree in that you do want to kind of cater your characters to build around Porom, but at the end of the day, if you want a stress-free clear, you don't get much better than Porom. Like, she does enable a lot of mechanics that you can just bypass altogether just because she kind of stands there and goes, yeah, and what? But obviously, Doc Shootems is one of the players that I mentioned who don't particularly like the way she plays. And this is like a hot topic, as I said with the Reddit post that I posted earlier. It's not just me and, Drusain on that post as well. Other people have said, I don't like the way she plays, I find it boring. So therefore, ask yourself, have you used Porom beforehand? Did you like her then? If the answer is no, you might not like her now either, because she hasn't fundamentally changed. There's just a lot that's been added to her. And then finally, Sir Alex says, I'm gemming Porom. Cypher has been nice to me, so I'll look for Lael BT on her banner. I'll admit I've used her very little up until this point, but she's going to be very helpful with insane battery, healing, and damage reduction, becoming the go-to support in many fights, especially in the BT Plus era. To be fair though, Porom seems to be either a super hyped by a part of the community or labelled as insanely overrated by another. I think that the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Porom is likely one of the strongest support units we have now, and we will get in quite a while, but that doesn't mean you can't clear content without her. That's still a rule that applies for any character, and she's no exception. So my suggestion would be pulling for her unless you're broken or hate her for some reason, because you would be really doing yourself a favour, but don't feel you are locked out of Lufenias if you happen to skip her for whatever reason. Is all I have to say to that. That is literally everything. Everything. No character in this game will lock you out of content completely. None. It doesn't matter how good I say they are, how good anyone else says they are. If you can't get them or don't want to, it's fine. It's so fine. Change your costume. It's such a point I want to drive home, that I think that people take either my recommendations or the recommendations of others, think I have to have this character. You don't. Not with any of them. But she is really good, and it's undeniable. Like, there are players in JP who have used her for literally 7+ months and done really well with her. Just don't feel that pressured to enjoy the game in a different way to how you would enjoy it. It's up to you at the end of the day. So I agree 100% with this comment. Some people have overhyped it. Some people have said that she's overrated. I think she's exceptionally strong, and I very much plan to have her, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to. So that is going to be all for today's video. It's a long one, but we had a big character to talk about and a big event to talk about. So it's a long one, but we got to the end of it. So thank you all very much for watching and sticking with me this long. I hope that this video has been helpful to you, or given you a bit of an idea on how you want to approach these things. And of course, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for notifications on any future videos I might be making. And I shall leave you there. So thank you all very much once again, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care.